So this session is called Video Metrics That Matter and the Tools I Wish I Created. And I titled it that because we have some panelists here that have created some tools that I really wish I created because they're awesome and because they're needed. But before I start, I just want to say Will Keenan was supposed to be here, and he called me last night. He was very sick. He even he asked if there was any chance that he could tell me in the morning, and I talked to him this morning. His wife wouldn't let him leave, so he apologizes, and I'm sorry that he was unable to show. With that, though, we have a replacement from earlier in the day, which means that we have a panel of Robs. Rob. So we have Rob Ciampa here, Robert Sandy, Rob, and Robert Gabel. Did I say the last name correct?
Close enough.
I should have asked that earlier.
Right.
Gable.
We're all friends.
All right, so rather than me introduce them, I'm going to allow them to tell you a little bit about what they do and their tools for a few minutes, and then I've got a bunch of questions. Starting with Rob.
Okay. All right. So I'm Rob Gable. I'm the founder and CEO of Tubular Labs. We're big data for YouTube. So we have a real-time audience dashboard that hundreds of companies use to better know and better grow their YouTube audience. Prior to Tubular Labs, I worked at Netflix briefly and also at Machinima. And Machinima is one of the largest, well, they're the largest, I think, still to this day, the entertainment channel on YouTube, a network of 1,000 or so partners. And our job was to grow video views to Machinima. And there were no tools at the time outside of YouTube Analytics and some articles from Real SEO, to be honest, and TubeFilter. And as a prior marketer, I had run online marketing budgets of $60, $80 million. And I was used to using SEO tools, SEM tools, every tool known to mankind. And there were some for Facebook. We were marketing a Machinima app on Facebook. We had a Machinima mobile app. We're using Flurry. And there just really wasn't anything for YouTube. And so I'm excited to see the activity in the space. So we're real-time analytics. We're a companion to YouTube Analytics. So YouTube Analytics tells you about your content, how many views. It tells you a little bit about your audience. It tells you, I guess, what videos they like, demographics, and country. But we're audience analytics. So we'll tell you who are those fans and influencers and advocates that Susie Ryder was talking about today. They're literally who they are. We help you communicate and get in touch with them. We also tell you what that audience likes on YouTube. So we mine all of those engagements to what are the other things they're engaging with. Does your audience like electronic dance music? Or do they like country music? Do they like beauty videos? Do they like nail art? Or do they like Call of Duty? And so we give a better, richer perspective of your audience. We also let you benchmark to any other company or channel or topic that you're interested in. And then we give you community management tools. So once you found this audience or the audience you want to get, better engage. But with Tubular, over time, you can track those bottom of the funnel metrics like engagements and advocates that Susie was talking about.
Excellent. And how about we move on over to Rob?
Yeah, Rob Sandy, CEO, co-founder of vidIQ, similar to the Robs. We help audiences or YouTube creators and brands and networks and media companies get more views, more subscribers, and very often at the end of the day, help them save time with their YouTube workflow. And prior to this, I started a company called Vidler. It was a white label video hosting platform. Competed against YouTube for many years, and I think the wake-up call was 3 or 4 years ago when we were seeing many of our customers that were hosting their video players saying, we can't afford to not be sending our traffic to YouTube anymore because we want to be showing up on search and related videos. And if we're not, we know that YouTube uses this as a signal. YouTube uses where that video is embedded on which sites as a signal, and if you're not using YouTube on your own site, you're hurting your traffic ranking on search and related videos. At that time, it was like an aha moment. It was like, I need to invest everything into starting this, and similar to Rob, we've raised a bigger round, and we're tackling this problem around optimization on YouTube.
Excellent. And then if we could move on to Rob.
Oh, thank you. So Greg Jarbo and I were talking earlier about doing our own little content show, but I can imagine a show, the 3 Robs. We'll get this on YouTube. We have personality. We'll have a good time. So I'm Rob Ciampa, and some of you had seen me earlier. We talked a lot about metrics, but I'm with Pixability. Our focus is pretty much lighting up the big brands on YouTube, working with their agencies to really get these companies to perform. And so we're focusing on marketing, we're focusing on advertising, and very much, we're kind of like big data meets YouTube, putting it all together to get some dramatic results. And I think as we all look at this stuff, and what the three of us have in common is when somebody comes to you and says, I want to do something on YouTube, we're going to have our SEO guy do it, tell them, go type www.youtube.com and tell them what your audience is doing. It's impossible. So our focus, like you guys, is there's a lot of information out there. There's a gazillion videos on YouTube, and you have to make decisions about audience. You have to make decisions about targeting. So one of the things that we use data for is we do the audience identification, but we're also focusing on the content that the audience is going to react to, and we put them together. And just in terms of background, I came up through the tech ranks, but I built video studios and focused on content for a while. And I sort of get the video bug when you realize if you put video with product introductions and things like that, magical things happen. That's it.
Great, thanks. All right, I'm going to start off with a not necessarily an easy question, but a quick one. What is engagement? Because that's obviously a buzzword and it does matter, but when I say what is engagement, I mean what are, let's say, the most important metrics to measure that would indicate that you're doing a good job with an engagement? And if we could start with Rob. About Rob Sandy.
Yeah, so I think it all ties back to watch time, right? Anyone at YouTube will tell you what are they using as their algorithm to show more videos, and they'll really emphasize watch time. And so what drives watch time? Is it number of tweets? Is it the virality of it on Facebook? Is it the amount of comments and the engagement you're leaving on those YouTube comments? Is it appropriately tagging that video and using the right thumbnails and titles? It's all of the above, right? So I would say it all goes back to watch time, and everything around that is kind of configured to focus on watch time.
Great, thanks. And then how about Rob?
Yeah, I think watch time is first, and then I think after that it's how passionate does the audience feel, and are they sharing, commenting, are they adding to the conversation? So although watch time is, I would say if you're Starbucks, you want people in Starbucks the most, so that's the number one metric. But beyond that, are they telling their friends about Starbucks? Do they love Starbucks? Do they share it? So those things are likes, favorites. Add to playlists, I think, are really interesting. Are they curating? Who's curating your content? Are they tweeting about it? Those are the signals that Susie was talking about. That not only is the message really hitting home, but that they're out there spreading the word, to other people.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think earlier today we talked about. We gave the warning, get over the view addiction. So views aren't engagement, views are prostitution. So what we look at is we're looking at engagement in terms of subscribers. And engagement, in many respects, is an equation. Okay, so there's no engagement metric. And whether you like it or not, and we'll give our take on engagement, but there's no great engagement metrics out there, and the burden is sometimes on you or companies like us to work with you to come up with it. But we're looking at subscribers. Subscribers matter, but not all subscribers are equal. We're starting to see subscribers that are very, very engaged and subscribers that are kind of just not doing nothing. It's those engaged subscribers, that as Rob mentioned, Rob too will mention, will share. They'll socialize. But they're also amplified. So as you're producing new content, engagement is tied to content. So you have to feed content in there. But if it's great stuff, that engaged audience is going to share, they will curate, they will comment, and they will make magical things happen. So you have to look at all those together as part of that equation.
All right, so there's great analytics now, I would say, in YouTube, but it obviously doesn't paint the full picture of the power of video and what video can do for your brand, even if you're a content creator. So what sources should they be looking at for other metrics outside of YouTube? Is Facebook really important to look? Twitter, all of the above? Is it search, et cetera? Any ideas? It could even be that when they come into Starbucks, we ask them. These are the sorts of things that'd be interesting to measure. Start here.
Yeah. So metrics we look at, and you can't treat social media the same way. So how many of you are happy with your social media over the past couple of years? Okay, couple people. Social media has been a train wreck okay, because we turned around and we hired, some 13-year-old out of college to basically, shepherd our brand. However, I mentioned at an earlier session, we just wrapped up a study. We really looked at the role of social media and video, especially YouTube. And we found several different things. Some brands are very Facebook-centric. And the Facebook metrics actually matter there. And I think we all know, and you guys will probably agree, video isn't about Facebook video. If anybody works for Facebook, I apologize. On Facebook, you put YouTube videos. Okay, that's going to be important. And then with Twitter, Twitter, again, very, very active among the better brands. Just to share one data point, with the brand study we just wrapped up, we looked at the top 100 brands. The top 25% of the top 100 brands, sorry about the math, had 330 times more social media engagement than the bottom quartile of the top 100 brands. So if you want to resurrect that dead social media effort, look at those metrics and use social media tied together.
I would just say outside of YouTube, one of the strong conversations that are occurring is around that you can monitor, that goes unmonitored, is all the tweets that are being shared about your YouTube URLs. Something that we offer insight into, and we do data on this, and we found that over 90% of the tweets that are talking about your YouTube videos that are being shared don't mention your brand name. I won't name the client, but they mentioned, like Tony Robbins mentioned one of the videos on Twitter, but they didn't say at the company name. They didn't say, hashtag company name. They just talked about the video, and they talked about how they really enjoyed this video. And this would have been a gem of a retweet if that social team was able to find it, but they did not find it because they weren't monitoring the thousands of YouTube URLs that were being shared on Twitter. And so I think that's one source that's probably a pretty strong gem for those out there looking at their YouTube strategy.
Yeah, cool, good stuff.
Well, kind of coming back off of engagement for a minute, I have a friend who runs a software company based out of San Francisco, and he was experimenting with TrueView about a year ago when it first came out. And I think a lot of people are probably disappointed if you've tried TrueView for direct response. The click-through rate's amazing, right? You're like, wow, there's 30 cents a click, 40 cents a click. I'm getting these great, really high click-through rates. And then the direct response rate on your site is not good. I know a couple people. I'm actually very curious. If you've been doing direct response with TrueView, I'd actually love to talk to you as a little side hobby. But so what he did is they're an English language site that any countries can do it, and he hadn't done any advertising in Australia before. So in Australia, he was doing TrueView only and looking to see if organic search increased, looking to see if sales increased. And what he kind of found was that TrueView was working more like traditional TV in that for every one person that was coming in on, and actually signing up for the software, he was getting additional later on view-throughs or whatever you want to call them, organic traffic that rose in Australia, and was playing around with that metric to kind of try to figure it out. So he's sort of an A/B test, I guess, if you will. So I think all your traditional marketing metrics come into play. The problem is, like any kind of cross-media situation, it becomes fuzzy if you don't have Australia there to be your case study. But you could look geographically for searches and visitors. If you can target AdWords geographically. So that's the marketing, from a paid marketing perspective.
Could I add one data point?
Yeah, actually, though, really quick, I'm glad you brought that up because I've heard from quite a few people, and I'm sure Julie can attest, that when you do a TrueView campaign like that, most of the time you are going to see an organic search volume lift. And so one piece of advice out of that is if you are going to do a large TrueView campaign, make sure you got a PPC campaign tied to it. So that way you're being paid, unless you are ranking all over the top for your brand name. But anyway, yes.
Yeah, just one final thing in terms, because we focus a lot more on advertising. It's your traditional advertising PPC model. That's why I think Mark Ray is doing them in parallel. The YouTube world doesn't necessarily, we saw an example of, hey, you can click on here on YouTube to a purchase decision. That's not mainstream yet. Okay, so there's still, as you start dealing with YouTube and the metrics, your traditional metrics for e-commerce, if you're an e-com play, aren't necessarily mature. So you're going to have to put some stuff together if you're tying YouTube to e-com.
Yeah, and they'd have to work a little better in mobile. So, well, I'm an SEO guy in my background, and so I have a take on the question I'm about to ask. But we've heard a lot about, you need to do both paid and optimization. What do you need to do first, and how do you strike a balance? do you have to do paid? So maybe if we could start with Rob at the end.
Well, I think obviously you have to make great content first, and you want that content to resonate with your audience and be in context, everything people talked about earlier. That's number one. And number two, definitely organic comes first. I think you want to make sure you're doing the tagging right, you are getting it out there. If you can find people who are willing to help you promote it, like your video, share it, that are friends or associated with it. We helped people on a movie campaign, and that organic thing came first. And so there was a band in the movie. It was a kind of a backstage thing. So obviously the band members, sharing it on Twitter and getting it out to their following. Get it out to your core following first. Make sure you don't pass it up. But paid marketing can help in a number of ways. It can help if you're a brand advertiser. There are a lot of MCNs who will use TrueView to backstop so that they can guarantee a minimum number of views for their content. So maybe they'll create a web series with a brand, and no one wants to create the web series and and then it turns out no one watches it. So they'll say, hey, we guarantee that it'll get 5 million views across the 10 episodes. And as the MCN, we'll be willing to come in and pay to make sure it gets there, but we don't want to, right? We want it to get there organically. We want it to be a hit. But in cases like Machinima, Bite Me Season 2 just wasn't as big of a hit as Bite Me Season 1, and there's only so much you can do about that.
Well, and let me add to that one as we come down the line even more. As personalized search becomes more prolific and social, and as my search results become completely different than your search results, et cetera, at that point, do you use paid to do the push and then optimize specifically based off the response? Like from the paid. Do you help that? Do you use that to educate you in terms of how you're optimizing moving forward? But original question or that one?
Yeah, I think as an organization, you have to choose where to focus your time. Do you want to now spend money on creating better content and then connecting with that audience, or do you want to spend time and money coming up with the right target audience to target on TrueView? And as an organization, I think if you're focused on the first part of that, where you start and end with the conversation around creating video, you really push yourself to create engaging content for that audience. And just working with the data side of things, we see a lot of people make some really big mistakes when you just look at it from that angle. Like not only adding 2 tags to a video when they give you the capacity to set 16, and there's no real negative toll to adding more tags. We actually show more search volume, more views, the more tags you add on a video. So I would say there's a lot of mistakes being had around organic audience development that all of us see here, and there's a huge opportunity to spend more time and energy there to grow your audience organically.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify a bit what I was getting at is it's becoming more and more difficult as there's more and more content on any search platform to rank for what you think you're going to rank for and know that you're going to rank for that for your target audience, unless you're then also targeting that audience, which in this case we're using paid. But so how do you tell your clients to strike a balance? And
Well,
how much, is it 10% paid? See if that pushes it such that then when it's optimized, it's growing?
I hate the term "it depends" because it usually means that the speaker has no clue. And I'm gonna say it depends, but I'm gonna.
It might be a dumb question.
I'm gonna caveat it. We almost, I would say 80% of our business now is a combination of both paid and organic. And it depends on the type of campaign. And we take a look, before we decide on when to do paid or when to time paid, we're going to take a look at the audience. What's the audience metrics? What does this content look like? Is it going to resonate? And again, like my colleagues here, we're crunching a lot of data to make some predictions, to say what do we think is going to happen, and that's going to actually affect when we actually do paid. There is a problem with paid, and I'm not sure if you guys have seen it. We suffer from a lot of people doing stupid things with TrueView. TrueView is incredibly effective if done right, insanely effective. And like everything else, we'll walk into an account, it's like, well, we tried TrueView. With what data? You try, oh, it's horrible. Who did you target? Well, our web SEO guy kind of did some targeting, we had some keywords. Did you have the metrics behind it? What were you looking at? So for those of you who have tried TrueView and are maybe skeptical, just please throw it away. It's really a very, very effective platform.
Can I mention one thing to another tactic? You will want to build up your own audience, particularly on YouTube, but it's hard when you have a brand new channel, with 4 subscribers. And there are tactics to distribute to get better SEO on YouTube by distributing through a partner that already has good SEO. So, for example, for the movie Black Swan, they distributed the dance sequence through Dance On. So Dance On is one of the leading YouTube dance networks. And the dance sequence that was, they gave it to Dance On, and Dance On pushes it as news. We've got an exclusive dance sequence from the upcoming movie, and they blog about it, they tweet about it, their influencers share it. And the dance sequence for Dance On for Black Swan got something like 5 times as many views as the official trailer did when they released it on the movie site. And it goes beyond that. There are Freddie W. I think if you gave him an action sequence, or if you got a special FX sequence, and so those things can link back to your main trailer, right? So, but you can be creative about using people who do have an audience on YouTube to drive you and help get you started. If you're starting a brand new YouTube channel from scratch, the #1 thing you have to do is go find people with a YouTube audience to help you build it up.
Great point.
So are there tools that exist, and what would you recommend in terms of analyzing those channels to say, yeah, that they have a huge following, but that's also an appropriate following for me to go after,
Well, that's self-serving because that's all we do.
That's a softball.
But that's what we do at Tubular Labs.
Aside from the tools that are coming out here, are there any things that people can look at? Is it clout score of the person's Twitter account? Is there any way to gauge the audience that's there and whether or not they're the right audience?
Well, I'll just finish off by saying, so what we do is we look at the channel's audience, and then we find out the channels that have a very high propensity to watch that channel, and it's kind of a layup, so that will surface the dance on from you. So we use the engagement data to do that.
All right.
We're trying to behave because I think we have all created tools because there was a void in the marketplace, and we're just trying to be polite.
No, I respect that. Thank you. I also respect the tools you guys are creating, and I think they're pretty cool. So, the view metric.
Yeah.
It was really what was driving SEO on YouTube, at least. It was number of views with a number of other things, and they've moved more towards watch time. And none of us work for YouTube, but several of you are mining a lot of data. And you may not have an answer, but I'm curious if you can elaborate at all or pontificate on what exactly this watch time is. Is it, the time watched, the time watched beyond that video, etc.? Any insights you can give on watch time?
So you get our opinions on views, and so the question is, what's watch time? And YouTube made some algo changes last year. Weighting watch time a lot more. We didn't go into detail earlier, but the reality is that views have been gamed. Okay, and so there's a lot of cleanup on views and everything else. So the emphasis is on watch time. Now, is it the amount of time that a video is watched, a percentage of it? If that's the case, we're going to make very, very compelling short content. And I made the case earlier that long content is equally important to short content. So what's going on with watch time, it's not a matter of watch time for a specific video. It's watch time for a session. So when somebody comes to your site, and this is why content curation is so critically important in the guided journey, is as they're on your site, they're watching one video. We said it earlier. What happens when you watch a video? You watch another one. So as they're going through your site, watching your videos, that's all counting toward watch time. So watch time is really an aggregate metric of engagement.
Oh, well, let me ask you this then. Do you think that, let's say I have a video and I annotate at the end of the video a ton of viral popular videos because now I want people to extend their session time versus they spend more time with me. Is one weighted more than the other? Have you seen anything there? So I'll just continue with
Yeah, we see whatever's, we're focusing on what's happening on the channel, keep them on the channel. If the viral videos, and our opinions on viral, we've seen some gaming to say we'll curate some content, we'll keep them on the channel and see some stuff, but the reality is we want them to focus on the core content and lay off the viral.
Yeah, I think extending on that, we're all I mean, you emphasized this earlier, was subscribers and gaining subscribers. And everyone will tell you, the average watch time when someone's a subscriber versus finding my video anywhere else is much higher, significantly higher. And it depends on the channel. But I think, I won't name the brands we work with, but, these brands have hundreds of YouTube subscribers, but millions of Facebook fans. And you'd ask them, like, why do you have millions of Facebook fans, but you're hundreds of YouTube subscribers? Well, something's wrong here. And they don't put any emphasis on trying to gain those subscribers. It's not an initiative internally. And when you show them the watch time differences between their own views that they just seed out paying for views, or versus the ones they earn with their subscribers, it kind of opens their eyes. And hey, maybe we should be putting annotations to promote subscribe time. Maybe we should be putting that in our descriptions. And so I would just say that with watch time, think about subscribers and think about growing that audience just like you would with Facebook.
Do you have any thoughts on the watch time metric?
It's murky. That's data that YouTube keeps pretty close to their vest.
Yes, I see why they should.
But so I don't. We like to crunch the data to come up with findings. I do think it seems to be, from what we've heard, it's a mix of the percentage of time that they engage, as well as the minutes of time they engage with the video, and then, like you said, the trail. I would not recommend, though, based on what I've seen, really long credits at the end of your video. I've heard YouTube say, no, go ahead, let credits run. It's about total watch time. I would recommend a link to some other video with the credits.
Yeah.
I would not put like 1 or 2 minutes of dead time at the end of your video. I don't think that helps for SEO.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't really have any proof. Can't say study.
This is all speculative. I'm just curious. With the view, is it dead? Does it matter? How much does it matter? Just really quick answer.
Subscribers matter. Views don't matter. Watch time matters more.
I agree with an asterisk. Views can be a proxy. For those of you who serve clients, there still is a view addiction out there, and
it's unhealthy. It's not.
It's bad.
I think views are a good stand-in when watch time's not easily available. So like something that you should, if you're evaluating a partner, back to the approach of you want to find some partners, what does their 30-day views look like divided by their subscriber base, right? If they have all these subscribers, but in the last 30 days they haven't gained any views, that channel might be dead. That channel is not active. So watch time would be a better stand-in than views, but I think views are sometimes easier to get for some of these metrics still. So I think views are good in terms of, and a lot of people when they're sourcing for, trying to find partners to join their network, they're looking for people with a 30-day view count, but I do think it's inferior to watch time. I'm fully with the other Robs.
So, and I agree, and when you're dealing with clients, can you convince them of that, or are they happier when you show them that someone's watched 15 hours of their content? Is that just as compelling to them as we got 1 million views?
Well, we have to. So yes, but it takes some education. And I'm sure if you guys are dealing with it as well. We're still, we get the phone call. Hey, we want a viral video because views are going to be very, very important. And so the first thing we tell them is, if you look at a viral video and you analyze a viral video, in 99% of the cases, if it's brand related, it's shared because of humor. Candidly, they don't give a shit about your brand. Okay, it just happens to be humorous. It's going to do nothing for your business. So once we convince them of that, then we say, well, we talk about views, and then we talk about, and you guys hit it on the head, we talk about subscriber engagement with the brand, and that's when everything changes.
All right, switching gears a little bit. With ROI, a lot of people start on YouTube, they try it out for a little bit, and then they say, oh, that didn't really work. And how do we transition to a point where people start realizing, or brands realize, that this content is of value beyond just an initial testing phase, and to keep measuring that? How do we get to that?
Those same brands, they'll turn off comments, right? And they'll upload content that's 30 seconds in length and has no engagement, no end caps, not addressing the YouTube audience. And And YouTube's, I think, very complicated relative to Facebook, Twitter, or even traditional video advertising. It's a unique community. It's a unique place to put video content, and no one really goes the full length to address YouTube when they're the ones that are giving up a month or two in, saying, hey, we didn't see the engagement we thought we were getting on YouTube. My big pet peeve is seeing the brands that just treat YouTube like Dropbox, right? They just send over 10 videos at once, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like, any case.
Well, one thing about YouTube is that people subscribe to personalities more than brands. I think that's true on radio talk show hosts. I think that's true for CNN. It's all about Anderson Cooper. It's not really so much about CNN. And so, I think if you're a brand, this is maybe an aside comment, but you should think about, having a personality. It can be the Geico Gecko. It could be. But, is there a personality? Because if you do want to drive subscriptions and you want to get outside the viral video hit, you need to be helping people with their problems. You need to be standing for something. I think General Mills just came out and they said they've decided every single one of their 37 brands has to have a purpose beyond selling the product. So what's special? I think they have Total. What's Total's purpose in life, right? I don't know. I don't think Special K is actually a General Mills brand. We don't work with General Mills, but Special K clearly is out there. They're about a healthier lifestyle. They're about losing weight, and that gives them content now that they can create for YouTube. And I don't know if they have a channel, but if you're Levi's, you probably want to stand for American stories. If you're and not jeans. So around the YouTube thing, it's about kind of finding a purpose, a theme. Red Bull does not stand for energy drinks on YouTube. They're enormously successful on YouTube because they're celebrating extreme sports.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and then last question. Since you mine a ton of data, it can be metric related or not, but what is your #1 tip for maximizing the performance of your assets on YouTube or on your website? And we'll just go down the line this way.
So again, it all comes back to content. I would say content plus community. And if you're not engaged, get the great content out there. And one of the things that we haven't touched on is, I thought Dropbox was great. Yeah, and we see that all the time. I mentioned earlier session, stop forcing people to think. Okay, there's smart people out there, and smart people don't want to think. And so produce content with regularity, make it predictable, and you're going to feed in such a way that your audience ends up engaging and sharing. So the takeaway here is be predictable, be consistent, be interesting, but also don't be blind. When you look at when you look at brands, and we had a dialogue earlier, your brand view of the world is very, very small. It's the dialogue outside your brand, and I thought Rob's point was good. It's get the personality. You may not own that personality. That personality may be a Hall video girl, maybe Michelle Phan, okay, maybe a Blair Fowler. Embrace that. That is part of what you have to nurture. And by doing regular stuff and tying into that, and also leveraging their content and curating their content, that's going to make the difference.
Yeah, we've heard that a lot today. If brands are to become publishers and become more editorial, they should start following the way publishers have been doing things for years, which is you schedule content. And I've seen that we have a little channel, Real SEO, we have a few subscribers, but it's been a great growth curve, and it's really all to the efforts of the two people we have putting shows up, and it's very consistent and it's scheduled. How about you, Rob, in terms of a tactic or strategy?
If I had to leave one, it would be respond to as many comments as you potentially can.
Yeah,
we see many brands turn off comments. When you're actually leaving comments on and you're replying to those comments, we're seeing 4 times more views on those videos than the ones that you're not responding to. So please respond to those comments, no matter what channel size you are. If you have 1 million subscribers or 500 subscribers or 10 subscribers, at all points, you should be doing as much engagement and responding to as possible, as that really does drive growth.
Excellent point.
Yeah, I guess I'd say don't confuse, this is maybe repeating, don't confuse a viral video with having a YouTube audience with a capital A.
Yeah.
that's coming back to see what you're doing. There's plenty of people out there that have a bacon-flavored mouthwash viral video smash, which actually might have kind of helped the brand. I can't, if you can remember what that was. But, and if I think that if you want to be a creator, it's not easy if you want to own content. However, the reason people want to do this is because one way is you could pay a few $1 million for some commercials, and then you can spend $10, $20 million on those TV commercials, and then at the end of the quarter, you got to start all over again, right? Michelle Phan hasn't spent $1 million total, and whatever she puts out next will have 500,000 people watch it, right? So that's the allure that are trying to bring brands in. That's not a viral video. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
We didn't bring this up in the advertising panel, and it's my fault for not being specific about it, but remarketing, do any of you guys have experience with, because you're talking about content, I know one of our strategies was always put out the good content to bring them in and get them engaged, add them with, when I say remarketing, I mean within YouTube, add them to a YouTube remarketing list and let your pre-roll ads or what have you get them later. Do any of you have metrics with that and how successful it's been?
Yes. Yeah, remarketing, we see two types of remarketing. We see, again, like all the advertising and YouTube advertising, there's just blind remarketing and there's intelligent remarketing. And we find the intelligent remarketing proves highly effective, and most people aren't leveraging it enough. But again, it's like the TrueView example. If you do advertising poorly and you judge you'll stop because it doesn't work. But if you do remarketing and TrueView stuff right, it works very, very well. So we're big fans of it.
I would ask you this. If you could better target retargeting blanket across, or if you could do TrueView but targeted versus retargeting your own site, blanket across everyone, which one would you rather go after on TrueView?
The former.
So you target TrueView just based on a targeted audience?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? I think I saw some hands. No?
I don't know, I've seen more people not aware that they can retarget TrueView based on their own site statistics. Yeah. And when you show that with them, they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know this was possible. And I see more of that scenario than I do this one.
Yeah,
but,
and I just, candidly, I think a lot of the providers that we work with aren't doing a good job marketing themselves. I mean, we tell, YouTube's great. They built a great platform, but are they the best marketers? Who are the best marketers of YouTube is the proverbial question. Is it YouTube or is it the community now?
A tactical tip on remarketing. The remarketing list does not begin until you go in there and create it. No. So don't wait until the day you want to start the campaign. Literally go home and Monday morning, set up all your remarketing lists, because it will take a while for the cookie pool to fill up.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Great.
There's been some really great, we'll call them commercials, advertisements for products, and they, for instance, will use the term go viral. And I've done this many times where when someone will talk about that video and you ask them what the product was, and they have no recall of the product.
That's right.
So in the same thing, what I'd like to see in a measurement as far as metric is when people have experienced the video and there's no call to action, and maybe there's not a reason to have a call to action, how do you measure the effectiveness of it just because of views? Do you have any metrics on that?
Yes. When we're able, and it's the rare instance of when we're able to hold all variables constant and we're just gauging the effect of YouTube and video specifically. And what we're looking at is we do a campaign with YouTube and with video. We watch the organic on the website rise. And every single time that's the case. But if you're doing multiple simultaneous campaigns, it's very difficult to measure that. So YouTube will result in a dramatic rise, if done right, in web, but it's very, very difficult to attribute. But where we've held everything constant, the results are just amazing.
of course, people are buying views, and this is a great way of growing the overall virality of a video. But I just say there's so many no-brainer things like getting your video on Pinterest and other audience development techniques that get ignored, and many organizations don't pay attention to those, and they throw their hands up and say, hey, we'd rather pay for 5 people to go buy and target views rather than, you know, spend 5 people's time on growing that audience organically. And I think that's a problem in the industry, and it should shift.
We have another question. Is this on? Is it? There we go.
You mentioned you hate it when people just dump videos on there, and yet we also talk about needing some consistency with our uploading. Now, is oversaturation a problem? Like if you're creating a lot of product videos that you want to be accessible for searching, so you're putting them on YouTube, can you actually oversaturate your subscriber base, and is there a way to prevent that?
Yeah, there's a technique you can use to make sure that if you're dumping 100 a day, that they're not all showing up in your feed. So that's what I'd recommend, not overwhelming them that way. Also, another trick, or another problem sometimes is if they don't go together. So we worked with a digital studio that had maybe 1 piece of young male-oriented content for every 4 pieces of female-oriented content. And some of the males were subscribing because they thought it was cool, but then they kept getting all this teenage girl content that they didn't want, and that actually didn't work. They ended up having to abandon, you know, so trying to serve both of those audiences also didn't work. So it's not just the number of it's not the number of content, but the type of content too.
I think there was something that happened that people complained about, and I think they missed the point. The re-architecture of the YouTube channel, I think, was a lot of people ignored. And we saw a lot of major brands just, you know, default convert when the forced conversion of the YouTube channel happened. And the YouTube channel was re-engineered, and I give YouTube a lot of credit for this, to really help curation and to help navigate. So if you're putting that much information there, and you know, I think you be careful, time your stuff. You don't want to, you know, overrun the feed either. But if the channel is well engineered, then people are going to find it doesn't matter how much, which raises the other issue, is how many channels should I have? And that's a very, very difficult thing. And if you search, it's not unusual to search on YouTube, obviously the #2 search engine, and to find a lot of dead channels. We were working with one major brand about a month ago that their biggest search was from the channel that they deprecated. And they couldn't figure out why. So it's going to be real important to take a look at that as well. So it comes back to, don't forget channel architecture.
All right, as I walk back, am I on? There we go. I want to thank you all very much, and can we have a round of applause?